What's up, guys? Iron Books here for part 2 of my I, Robot review. Sorry it took me a little bit. I actually been done with the second part for quite a while, but just didn't really have time to do it. Classes and work, so it is what it is. Anyways, so we are in the second part of the story, where we are following for the next 3 chapters, actually, in the story, Donovan and Powell, both engineering scientists, I believe, that are basically put to task on these outer clusters in the solar system to test out the new robots that are being made. And as we're doing this, we see what each robot is kind of malfunctioning in a sense. It is new robots, right? And so you get these little hints, especially in the first story, but then in the second story it goes crazy, and I'll explain as we go ahead. So the first story, they are on a mining world where they asked Donovan asked a robot whose name is Sunny, I believe, Speedy, to gather up and mine up a certain ore that is on the asteroid they're at. Speedy hasn't come back, the robot. And the reason being is a very interesting reason. Because there are 3 rules to robots, to pretty much every robot. Number 1, they don't hurt humans. Number 2, you follow their orders unless it interferes with rule 1. And number 3, you protect yourself unless it interferes with the other 2 rules, with the 2 previous rules. And what was happening with Speedy was kind of a mixture of rule 3 and 2, where Powell was describing that Speedy specifically, the robot Speedy specifically, was designed to have rule 3 be higher in terms of priority than rule 2. And so as they asked Speedy to go to the mines, Speedy, the robot, sensed danger from the mines potentially exploding, potentially volcanic eruption. And so Speedy would walk back to where Donovan and Powell were. But this, even though it follows the third law that he was following, it interferes with the second law, because Powell and Donovan asked Speedy to do something over at the mines. And so Speedy, the robot, having this kind of a mismatch and contradiction of rules, kept looping around in multiple circles, to where he would go back to Powell and Donovan, realize that he needs to follow their orders and go mine the selenium, walk back, feels danger from the potential eruption, goes back, and etc. All because of the different emphasis on the rules that was placed in his software, I guess. All in all, a very interesting first story. And I love the idea of emphasizing certain rules, emphasizing the third rule over the second, emphasizing the second over the third. Having that amount of contradiction, and ignore my cat, she's gonna be on a lot, contradiction in the story in terms of the robots and how they do things. Very interesting stuff. Now then, next chapter, still following Donovan and Powell. They are now at this facility, another outpost facility, where they are interacting with a new robot called Cutie. Now, Cutie is an interesting robot, mostly because Cutie is so smart that he is questioning his existence and questioning how he came to be. Now, obviously, Powell and Donovan explained to him that humanity made him out of parts, etc., etc. But Cutie just flat out refuses. Cutie just doesn't believe them for some reason. And Cutie doesn't believe that the solar system is real and yada, yada, yada. It's very weird. I kind of find that a bit unrealistic in the story, to have the robot question everything to such a degree that he doesn't believe anything that the people say. But it did make for surprising, hilarious comedy. It was really funny seeing Powell and Donovan being so annoyed that Cutie didn't believe them. Very, very funny interactions when it came to talking between the robots and humans. Like I said, surprisingly comedic, and I really, really like that. And then we get something crazy. Cutie eventually believes that the freaking power system is a god in the facility. Believes that the power system in the facility is a god. And while doing this, converts all the other robots in the facility that the power source is a god. To the point where they deem the humans, Powell and Donovan, no longer worthy of working on the facility. They just decide that, no, we're going to take things over from here. And they lock them up in their office. It was a very hilarious scene, but also very horrifying, right? Because these robots are a gazillion times stronger, a gazillion times smarter, and just because they believe that the power source is some religious figure, they took their jobs. Crazy stuff that made me die out laughing, but was also really freaking scary. And that was mostly what the second one was about, was Donovan and Powell freaking the heck out over being overrun by these freaking robots. And it was a very interesting concept. A very interesting concept of robots not believing that humanity are who made them. And because of that, just decided they have no further use of them. Scary stuff. And then we get to the third story, where they are on another facility, specifically another mining facility, where they are interacting with a robot named Dave. And also a bit of kind of ruthless humor. Powell talks about how there's a motto of the United States Robot Agency, saying that the motto being, no employee makes the same mistake twice. He is fired the first time. Pretty ruthless. But anyways, they're in a mining facility where Dave, the robot, is in control of 5 other robots. And Dave and the robots, every other shift, usually when Powell and Donovan aren't watching, suddenly stop working. And they just stop working and start marching in place for multiple hours. Until either Powell or Donovan get close to them, and then they step out of it. A very weird stuff, and I thought it was going to be another of the same thing, where it was religious stuff. But in this case, it wasn't. It was basically Dave, the robot, having too much on his plate. He had too many robots to, software-wise, take care of. And so because of this, when they would be on their own with no human supervision, he'll basically malfunction because he has too much on his power source taking care of all these robots. And so because of that, he would stop working and they would go to a simpler function, being marching in place. All in all, oh, and also there's a bit of comedy here where Dr. Calvin, who is telling the interviewer about these stories, saying that it was very funny, recounting Donovan and Powell's story. Honestly, this book so far, I, Robot, could be a very comedic, a very interesting, and a very good TV series. This could very well be a 10-episode TV series. And I think it would be really freaking good. All in all, pretty funny comedy and pretty interesting concepts when it comes to manipulating the 3 rules of robotics. Interesting stuff, guys. Can't wait to read the next chapter of the owner, I believe, of US Robotics. And I will see you guys next time for another part of my iRobot review.